Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. Leverage is what you're going to need as a songwriter, as a singer, as an artist. That's how you're going to get the PUD deal. That's how you're going to get the love from managers, from booking agents, from a record label, from other band members, from the musicians in your community to make something better. You're going to need leverage. That's why we called it the C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. Leverage means you've got a track record already. It means that it's not the idea, it's not the potential, it's not something we need to believe in. It's something that we can already see. And therefore, I can connect the dots myself. And the brilliant Baxterdom there comes from my friend and co-host Wordman, Mr. Brent Baxter. Brent's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady Antebellum, Joe Nichols, and more. And Brent helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you can write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on a regular basis, he gives you opportunities to connect with the pros. You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. Daredevil has created over 25 national TV opportunities for their indie artists by making them discoverable. They've also created multiple tour opportunities, and through the power of digital marketing data, they've attracted a number of investors for their artists. The investors are the money people, and the money people like the numbers because the numbers don't lie. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S. There is no S because there is no other Johnny D.
What's happening, brother?
Hello.
What are we going to learn about today?
Oh, man, I'm stoked because today is actually, I know it's going to go well because it already went. I'm going to be sharing an interview that I did with a pro songwriter who writes CCM, he writes country, and I have an interview with him that is already recorded. It's over in the Freddie community. If you're a member over there, maybe you've seen it. If not, it was just too good to keep to myself.
Okay.
So we're going to share that today.
I love that. Well, before we do that, let's take care of a little business here. We know it's a digital world out there, but it's still an important role for physical media in today's independent musician. Straight up, one of our artists, Alora, is on tour right now with a band called Texas Hippie Coalition. Alora's direct support. They've been selling a pretty good average of around $100 to $150 a night of merch. The headliner sells $800 a night of merch, and these are like bigger clubs.
Cool.
So it's not, digital royalty payments are small. They're so small, but when you're selling CDs, vinyl, T-shirts, and things of the like at gig, koozies, whatever, it becomes an important income generator. It's what's necessary to fund the tour, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And knock, knock.
Who's there?
Math.
Hello?
Yes.
Math?
Math says for every CD you sell at a gig, you need about, like 3,000 streams to make the same amount of money. That's a lot of streams. So that's 3,000 streams to equal selling one CD. Why aren't you selling CDs? Right?
Yeah.
You're literally leaving money on the table when you don't have merch on the table. Thankfully, our friends at Disc Makers are the place to go for your disc and other physical media, including vinyl, USB drives, and even T-shirts. And you can find the fine folks at Disc Makers at www.discmakers.com, or you can give them a call at 800-468-9353. That's 800-468-9353.
There you go. And hey, if you haven't joined the C.L.I.M.B community yet on Facebook, please do so. We let everybody in. You have to request to be let in, but it's active, very active. This is not a Facebook group where people are screaming at the wall, where everybody's well behaved, where we have it organized. And Brent, that's largely in part to you. So that's off to you. But
I learned discipline when I was in the Facebook joint. In the clink. I learned to be no.
But we've got times when you're going to put your music up and get some feedback on it and talk about your wins, and it's just structured. That's all it is. You'll figure it out, the ropes, and you'll be able to hang out. So if you haven't done that yet, do so. You got a quick update on that?
Just kind of scrolling through what's going on in the community at the time of this recording. Our most recent New Heights post, which is where you climbers can share your wins, music-related wins. I'll just shout out a couple of these. Brett Cusack. He says, released 2 singles online and a third one coming up this month. So congrats and good luck, Brett. And then Randy England said, booked my first November writers round. So good job, Randy. Good job, Brett. And so those are just some of the stuff that people are sharing, some of the wins people are having. So it's a good way to get motivated. We also have the social share post that comes out once a week, and you can share like, hey, this is where y'all can find me, so you can help connect on a deeper level with the people in the group. We have the Co-Writer Connect. We have the Gig Alert. So if you're playing out, hey, here's a place where you're actually welcome to share that.
There you go.
Good stuff here. Yep.
It doesn't come across unsolicited. We are soliciting you for that information.
And it's great because it's all as a comment under that post. So if you want to go looking for it, you know where to find it. You just go to one post and read the comments. If you don't want to see it, you don't have to look at it. It's not junking up the feed.
That's right. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you consume podcasts. We are everywhere, I believe. Mm-hmm. Take 5 seconds, 20 seconds. Leave a 5-star rating review. Okay, leave an honest rating and review. We hope it's 5 stars. We read them all, and we'll make you famous. Even the bad ones. We've read some pretty crappy ones. There's a couple out there. So we're honest with it. We take it on the chin. And finally, if you're finding value in this, Brent and I were just talking about how much people binge this. The stats show us that. Sometimes we'll have an episode that you're like, we have a great day where it's like, oh, wow, there's a boatload of downloads. And then you look at the latest episode, and it's not because of the latest episode. It's because of all the episodes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's spread out more than you think it would be. Like, oh, it's not all the new episodes. People are going back and listening to the old ones, which is awesome. Yeah. Because they're all valuable.
So people are binging. So here's the deal. The content, we feel it's good. We feel it's reaching people. Obviously, we're still doing it almost 4 years later. If you like it, share it. Tell somebody about it. Put it on your socials. Make sure you tell some other musicians and some other songwriters and other people that this content would be interesting to. Hey, you're going to want to check this out. I mean, we've got amateurs. We got pros. We got big time pros talking about it. I mean, people that I'm flattered that everybody listens to it, but I mean, people that I find out like that listen to it, I'm like, oh my God, you listen to it? Really? Like,
yeah, it's like, so we're not full of it. Okay, great. That's usually my reaction is like, so we're doing all right. They're like, yeah, you're spot on. I'm like, okay, good. Just checking.
It's true. I had did we talk about this in the podcast? Like the one hit songwriter that I had, I was working, one of my artists was recording at his studio, and I had never met him before. We ended up hanging out, and we just get into a conversation about the future of music and digital marketing and blah, blah, blah. And I hand him a card, and he looks, my card has Daredevil Production on one side. On the other side, it's got the C.L.I.M.B. And he turns over the card, and he's like, oh, you listen to the C.L.I.M.B, and just as the words are coming out of his mouth, you see him doing the math. Like, wait a second.
Why is it on your card?
Yeah. Why? Hey, you're Johnny. I'm like, dude, I'm Johnny. He's like, I listen to your podcast. I love it, dude. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. So what a great, it was a good moment for me that nobody can ever take away, So share it. People like it. Okay. All right. So let's get into this interview. Who do we got?
Yeah. So today is over in the Freddie community, which is in the process of becoming also the Songwriting Pro membership community. But I do something called the Hang, which is I call up either a buddy of mine in the music business or someone that is not a buddy yet, but we're going to become buddies, and just interview them, sit down online. So it's a video interview, and they go for about 30 minutes, and just people in various parts of the business. And then they're up in their evergreen in the member area where you can watch those. And I try to ask questions that are going to be helpful. And so I just thought I'd share one of these 2 episodes ago with Ted Hewitt, who's the producer for Rodney Atkins. And then today we're going to share a hang with Tyrus Morgan. So Tyrus is a Nashville via Kansas singer-songwriter and worship leader. He's landed cuts in both country and Christian music. In country, he's written a Walker Hayes cut, and he's currently writing with Walker for his upcoming project. Walker's on Monument Records. You Broke Up With Me and Craig and some other cool songs.
Some cutting edge kind of stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. And he also has cuts or singles coming up with like Kevin Mack and Jaden Michaels. On the Christian side of the street, Tyrus has penned hit singles for Unspoken, Good Fight. If you know Good Fight, if you listen to K-Love or The Fish or whatever, you probably heard that one a lot. He's had cuts by New Song, as well as cuts or singles by Johnny Diaz, Battle Drums, Worship, Finding Favor, Jenny Owens, We Are Messengers, Cochran and Company. He's a staff songwriter for EMAC and Goatee. So not too shabby. And so I just sat down with him for about a half hour, and we're just it was too good not to share. So I just wanted to share it with the C.L.I.M.B community.
I love it. Well, let's get into it.
All right, here we go. Our guest today is a Nashville via Kansas singer-songwriter and worship leader. He's landed cuts in both the country and Christian music markets. In country, he's written a Walker Hayes cut and is currently writing with Walker for his upcoming project on Monument Records. He also has cuts or singles coming up with Kevin Mack and Jaden Michaels. On the Christian side of the street, our guest has penned hit singles for Unspoken, Good Fight, which I hear on the radio, and new song, The Same God, as well as cuts or singles by Johnny Diaz, Battle Drums Worship, Finding Favor, Jenny Owens, We Are Messengers, and Cochran and Company. He's a staff songwriter for EMAC and Goatee, which is Toby Mac's publishing company. If you know who Toby Mac is, if you don't, you need to listen more K-Love. Okay, so that's not too shabby. What really warms my heart about our guest today is that his family has answered the call to care for orphans through international adoption. I don't know if we'll get to that today, but it's something close to my heart, so I like to call that out when I can because we're an international adoption family as well. But anyway, Tyrus Morgan, thanks for hanging with us today.
Man, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking some time before you're writing later today, or you having a...
I am producing today, and then I'm going out on the road and riding on the bus for a couple days starting tonight. So going to kind of get some production done today and then head out.
Awesome. Well, good deal. So this is production for another artist?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, cool. We may cover that. We may get to that if time allows. I have a couple questions I like to try and ask everybody and get through those, and then just kind of see where everything goes. So my goal today for the hang is to inspire, educate, and motivate our fellow songwriters. And so I want to do that by having an honest conversation, by keeping it real. So we want to cover some of the ups and some of the downs and, just let people know kind of what your version of the music life is. Everyone has their own version of it. I have mine, you have yours, but just give people a flavor of a little bit of what they might be in for. And so I like to start off with something I call cuts and bruises. So it's basically your best story of a cut, and then the best or most painful story of a music industry bruise. So something that, a high and a low. And y'all flexed up, you cracked your knuckles, you ready to go?
I'm ready, brother.
All right. So why don't we start off with a cut story? So either, a first cut, best cut, whatever it might be, some high moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, a really high moment was the first time I got in the room with Walker Hayes. We wrote a song called Leela's Stars, and we just kind of locked the door and didn't come out until we felt like that song was at least super close. And I kind of said, in my mind, I thought, man, I'm not leaving this room until I hear Walker say, hey, I think this may make it. Mm-hmm. So we just kept hammering that out. I think we spent probably 6 or 7 hours that first day, and then we probably had another 3 or 4 hours of rewrites because that song, I don't know if you've heard it, but it is just chock full of lyric. So there's a ton of lyric in there. So lots of editing to do, and the way the rhyme scheme works, and with his kind of hip hop type of flow, it kind of makes those rhyme schemes, the way that it falls, just super intricate, which just slows down the writing process, but makes it super fun as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you get that line that flows right and has the rhyme.
Exactly.
Exhilarating or just relieving.
Yeah, a little of both. For sure.
Yeah. So great. Yeah. So that one did go on to get cut, and it's on, which project is it on for him? Because I've heard it. It's out there.
I think it's called Break the Internet.
Okay. So
is the name of the record. And I really recommend, not only do I love Walker as a person, but just, I think his music's super fun and killer. It's a great summer playlist type of thing. So I'd recommend people just go listen to all his stuff. Cool.
Yeah. I remember that just because I've heard a lot of his story, working at Costco, and, I've heard the story behind that song and just kind of what he was going through at that time. So that's.
Exactly. I remember that day he was just telling me that whole story because we had never even met in person till that day. And it's funny, I called my dad my secondary publisher because my dad gives baseball lessons here in Nashville and had been giving Walker's kids lessons for about a year. And for about a year, he kept telling me, man, you really need to get together with this Walker guy. I think that you guys would hit it off. I think you could do something fun. And my dad said that a few other times, and I hadn't always agreed with him. And so I didn't know who Walker was at first. And so it took a while to get us together. And once we got together, my dad was exactly right. So it was just kind of a neat way to get together and connect. And we've remained good friends. We've been writing just last week for his new project that I think he has to have turned in this summer. So yeah, it's just been a neat situation.
Cool. That is something I wanted to talk about, is that writing with the artist. I mean, that's a huge topic of conversation on the row. And if you look at the country charts, it's really easy to see why. Is so many artists write their own songs. And so if you want to get a cut, one of the best ways is to get in the room with the artist. And so, yeah, you're writing with Walker. Now, correct me on my timeline if I'm wrong on this, but when you wrote Layla Stars, that was after his first record deal ended, right? And so was he between deals at the time? And
yeah, well, he was, I don't know exactly like when he actually signed with Sony Monument.
Mm-hmm.
So he might have, because that song is the Sony Monument release.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly sure kind of exactly like when we wrote it but definitely his deal with Capitol was done, but he might have been under Sony around that time.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you how you got in the room with him, because it's such a topic of conversation. That's something I'm always curious about. And it's anecdotal. Everyone has their kind of own path, how they end up, in the room with an artist that either is a major artist or is on their way to becoming a major artist or an unknown at the time. So yours was a dad recommendation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely recommend having a dad that believes in you and is willing to talk well of you. And it's been cool too, because I mean, I'm just like everybody else. I'm fighting to figure out ways to get in the room with established artists and all those sorts of things. That's an everyday fight. But what's been really cool about getting in Walker's camp is he's got 2 publishers. They're very connected. Mm-hmm. So I've gotten relationships now with Smack and Rare Spark, which has led to other Sony Monument artists like Teddy Robb and a couple other people that I'm currently kind of in the room with. So it's been really cool. Just the doors. I mean, you know how that works. The doors just seem to start to open whenever, if you got one person that really believes in what you're doing, they can start to open a lot of doors for you.
Cool. Yeah. And I think one thing I find interesting about artist co-writes, because I've had the thing too, you mentioned how, Walker's one of your friends, is there are artists I've written with where I think we've written good songs, but I probably don't want to go hang out on the bus just because maybe our lifestyles are so different or whatever it is. Like, well, I don't know how much legs this thing has, versus other people you write with. You're like, we really connect as people. And so I guess Walker's one of those people that you connect, on a personal level.
Yeah. And it's been funny because that's kind of how my career's been, both with Walker really being the beginning on the country career the last couple of years for the most part. And then on the Christian side, which I've done a lot more and have been in that a lot longer, I've noticed that, I mean, for the most part, a big chunk of my cuts or singles or success, however you want to look at any of that, has been, it's kind of probably more quality, less quantity, from the standpoint of like, I'm writing with artists that truly 90% of them are good friends of mine, and I do go out on the bus with them. Our families do get together and hang out, and so I have a lot of cuts with that smaller group of artists. Mm-hmm. That's starting to change a little more recently. Part of it is my publisher's doing a good job of just spreading that out a little bit, but I seem to go pretty deep with the artists that I write with.
So get a lot on the books, you mean, and just kind of keep going back and kind of keeping a day on the books.
Yeah. And I've also found, I think the older I get, I want to write with people that I really enjoy being around. And I mean, because you spend a lot of time talking about pretty personal stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you're not at least somewhat enjoying the person you're with and care about their story, especially them as an artist. And I always look at my job as a songwriter as to come along and serve that artist. I mean, probably first and foremost, I'm serving the song. Mm-hmm. Because I can do that whether I'm writing by myself or just with another writer or with an artist. But whenever it comes to writing with an artist, that's like the main thing, is I want to just serve what they're trying to say, what they're trying to build, the brand they're trying to strengthen.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for everybody. We are in the service business, and the more we think about what can I do to serve somebody else, then Zig Ziglar said we can get basically anything we want out of life as long as we help enough other people get what they want. We kind of by default get what we're aiming for. Yeah. I think that's important, whether people are going into publisher meetings or going into co-writes with artists. It's not about what can you do for me? Hey, Mr. Publisher, I got these songs. Why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you sign me a deal? Why don't you go get my songs cut? But instead of coming in going, okay, well, what do you need? how can I provide that for you? Because publishers
Right.
are also in the service business of serving artists and serving labels, and that's how they continue to keep the lights on.
Absolutely. And that honestly is such a shift in thinking. I mean, I think I would venture to say almost everybody, 99.9% of people that move to Nashville to try to get a deal, it is all about what can I get? What can I get?
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty natural. But I think once that shifts to, listen, I am a songwriter. I am a professional songwriter. Maybe not everyone knows it yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that needs to be more the mentality. And so this is what I do. And what I do is through that is serving someone else. Just like if I were a professional plumber. I mean, that's what I do for a living. It provides for my family, but it's also serving the people that are having trouble at their house and need a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely been a shift for me.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a wise one. And I'm working on that as well. All right. So that's a cut story. So a happy story. So now the flip side of that coin, the bruise, the music business bruise. What's your best or worst, most painful, however you describe it, story of the other side, the down to go with the high?
Well, I mean, I've got plenty, but I'm just going to jump to probably the first big bruise, very disappointing thing. And looking back, I see that probably it set me up to have correct expectations for being in this business, but not long. I mean, I had only been in Nashville for probably less than 2 years, which for anyone that's come and done the Nashville thing knows that's like a blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. But for people thinking about going to Nashville, that seems like a really long time. But anyway, within those first couple of years, I moved here right after Carrie Underwood won American Idol. Or maybe she won it like that second year I was here, something like that. And I had a direct in with Mark Bright, who was working on her first project with Jesus Take the Wheel, and got together with 2 other writers. One of them was Mark's staff writer. And we wrote a song that I still think has legs and could just be updated a little bit. Probably needs a new demo. But that song made it all the way in the studio with her, and then it didn't end up making it. And then the same song got put on hold by Jody Messina, and then didn't end up making that. And it was all within like 2 months of each other. I think it got put on hold with a big record label, and they weren't sure who the artist was going to be, but they just said, we want to put this on hold because we love the song and someone needs to cut it. And I said, I agree.
Yes.
And so it still is sitting on a 13, 14-year-old demo right now that I still go back and revisit. But I remember thinking at that time, I was like, man, everyone says it's a 10-year town. I'm going to have this jump start within 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I think Jesus Take the Wheel maybe was already out as a lead single and was already killing it. And then they're finishing the record, if I remember right. And so I knew that it was going to be big. I mean, because she had such a huge buzz around her. And so I was just seeing this golden path in front of me because I knew all the doors that would open, and then none of it happened.
Yeah, that's one of those, even so early on, was hopefully encouraging as well. Because I think that's one of those things of like, it's more of like a higher class problem, like a high class heartache kind of thing to be able to have that. I remember the first time, like I just moved to Nashville, and I'd been making some trips, and somebody had told me over at they're at RPM Music. Totally different cast of characters then, but I was meeting with Tracy over there and played her a song. She's like, oh, I've heard this one. Yeah, I played this for Tim, for McGraw. I was like, what? Yeah. She's like, yeah, well, he passed on it. But I was like, he heard my song? When I just moved to town like the week before, and I was just amazed going, okay, this is like it.
Absolutely.
I wish he'd loved it, but at the same time, like, what? Okay, well, that's at least possible. That's further than I've ever gotten before.
Well, and they're not playing songs for him. I mean, they're not going to waste their time or credibility. So that said a lot. Right. So, yeah. I mean, I compare it. I'm actually not a huge golfer, but I do see a very similar analogy here. It's like when you do go play golf occasionally and you play terrible, your score is terrible, but the day was nice. It was enjoyable. Maybe you had a good friend out on the course with you. So there's lots of positives going on. And then you hit maybe the last shot of the day and you hit it perfect.
Right.
And you're like, and you had just said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then you hit that last shot perfect. And you're like, we should do this again next week. You know?
Right. Just enough to keep you hanging on. Right.
Exactly.
Well, that's great. Let's see. So we've talked, some about relationships and also about getting some cuts. And do you pitch your own songs, or are the folks over at EMAC and Goatee handling most of that, or is there a mix?
Yeah, definitely a mix. And honestly, I don't spend a ton of time, and honestly, neither do they, on just straight up outside pitches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll do it occasionally if we see a really good in, or we just feel like the song is a perfect pitch.
Mm-hmm.
But we are way more focused on just creating great rooms.
Mm-hmm. So they work on creating great rooms.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what I try to do too, especially as I have gained relationships with artists. I'm trying to then pull in, if I know that artist's strength is maybe having a vision for a song and an idea and great melodies, but could use help with heavy lifting on the lyric, then I'm going to pull in my buddy who I think's the best lyric. And that day I may play more utility man, where maybe I'm building a track, maybe I'm helping with some lyric, maybe I'm editing a melody, something like that. And then vice versa. And if it's someone that's just a great lyricist. And so we're both, me and my publisher, are really focused on just creating great rooms. And I think a lot of that is just out of the nature of outside songs are just harder to get placed right now because of the artist writing. So we're just more focused on building those relationships, getting great rooms.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the power of relationships, which have always been important in any business. I mean, really, any business is a relationship business, but especially in the music business as it is now versus maybe how it used to be. I've been hearing that more and more, from publishers going, what do? I manage calendars.
Yeah.
Like I used to go out and pitch songs, and now I manage calendars and try to get the right people in the right rooms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, if you're like me, you probably, I moved to town, no artist aspirations at all because I sing like a horse. But, just as a straight lyricist going, I just want to sit in the room and write songs and have them magically end up on the radio.
Yeah.
And didn't want to think so much about the other parts of it. The networking, the getting in the right rooms, creating a great room, I think is a good way to put it. And so what are some of the strengths you think that you bring to a room? Because you mentioned sometimes you're the utility person, you produce, you may build a track, that sort of thing. What is?
Yeah. I mean,
as your publisher, is selling you, getting you in the room.
I think I am sold as a utility guy a lot, because I do think I am able to fill some of those roles. I'm kind of like a jack of many trades and master of none is probably my strength and my weakness. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was an artist, and I probably started out more as the guy that can sit down with an acoustic guitar, string a couple cool lines together in a decent melody and have something to start with. Mm-hmm. Over time and out of survival, I became more of a lyric guy at first, because I was getting some of these artist rights where they just had killer melodies. And so I would really heavy lift on lyric. Mm-hmm. And I really have gotten to where I'm proud, I guess, in a healthy way of just like, I've worked hard to exercise that lyric side of my brain and be focused on that and have a radar up for ideas and lines. And then over time, I started just out of necessity. I'd say, man, I love this song. I wish we'd go ahead and get that demoed. And then demo, there's $600 or $700, and maybe it didn't end up sounding how I wanted it. So I bought a Pro Tools rig and just started messing with that and started creating my own demos. Then people started liking my demos and started having me produce stuff. So it's kind of just been naturally out of kind of survival of, okay, now I guess I produce, and that allows me, when I don't have good royalties coming in, to still make a living.
Mm-hmm. And it's another way of adding value and serving somebody.
Yep.
Being in the room.
Yep. Exactly.
So when I first moved to Nashville, it was, most everybody's turning in guitars, work tapes to publishers. Hey, right. Here's us banging away, 1 or 2 writers or 3 writers or whatever, banging away in the room. Here's our copy of it. Here you go. Let us know if you want to demo it. And I was talking to a publisher, I guess last year before or something, and he was saying how most of what he gets now is already pretty much done like by the first time he hears it. Is that something that, because you're writing a lot, you're going out on the road to write, you're also producing, so you're busy. What's kind of your bar for, because you can do tracking and do some of your own stuff, for what gets the love and kind of what doesn't, as far as taking it to that next level?
Yeah, probably first and foremost, if it's an artist, right, and the artist is super into that song, then I'm going to probably pull out all the stops to make sure there's nothing that would make them change their mind about that song. So I'd kind of blow that out. Probably the second thing after that would just be, if I love the song and I really believe in the song, then I'm going to spend time demoing that out. Then third would be if a co-writer or a publisher says, hey, we really need this demoed, which I then sometimes might say, well, do you want to invest in that demo a little bit? I can invest some time, but we need real drums. Do you want to invest in real drums or whatever? And I don't know. I've got some opinions about kind of how that demoing situation happens, and the whole track guy in the room thing is kind of a whole nother conversation. I think there's a lot of value there, but I also don't love the trend of someone being in the room with their back to you for 3 hours building a track, and or the expectation that if you can do tracks, that's just part of your job to spend another day or two whenever you just wrote 33 or 50% of a song.
Right. Like you and I get together for 3 or 4 hours, we write a song, then the next day I'm on to my next co-write, and I expect you to spend the next day tracking the song. Right.
Which, again, like, I think it's all part of it and great, and I'm happy and I enjoy doing it when I'm excited about the song, and or when I just see a lot of potential for the song. I think that makes total sense, and that's part of my job. But I think a lot of times publishers and writers can get in that thing of, well, I need to turn in a song, and so I need this demoed. And I'm kind of like, well, that's 2 more days of work for me for you to just turn in another song.
Right. We're in the service business, but there are limits.
Exactly.
That's maybe service, but it's not really adding much value.
Exactly.
I guess is the thing.
Right. And I have found, though, that, I am starting to notice some A&R people and publishers, I wouldn't say getting back to what you were talking about, where it was kind of just a work take, guitar, vocal, but I am noticing people are starting to say, hey, we don't need this like full blown, maybe just like a pad and acoustic vocal and a little bit of a beat, just to show that just to make sure people understand it's up tempo or whatever. So I think people are getting more reasonable about what needs to be on the demo again, which I think is really healthy, because it's also good for the creative process to be left a little bit more open for the producer.
Let them do their jobs.
Right.
A little bit more. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Well, cool. As we're kind of rounding up to the home stretch here, I'd love for you to share some advice, 2 kinds of advice. And the first one, we're going to cover craft and business advice. So do you have any specific craft advice for aspiring songwriters, just from stuff you picked up? It could be something super specific. Like I heard one time John Lennon, in an article, they asked him for advice. He said, the word just, be very suspicious of it. So super specific, just on a word, like don't use that word a lot. Or it could be something more general. Is there anything that springs to mind as a good piece of craft advice for people listening?
Yeah, this has probably been said on your podcast and every other writing one probably ever, but I think it's the most important, and that is to treat writing, it is getting up and going to work every day. It's not, especially I think young, aspiring kind of people that are just starting out still, I'll get approached quite often, if I'm at a show with an artist, or I still play out a little bit, or in other settings, just young people coming up and asking me about songwriting, and then they'll start talking about inspiration. And I just kind of cringe at inspiration. I'm like, man, inspiration is like the frosting on your birthday cake once a year.
Right.
And it's really more about, are you writing every day? Are you at least doing some sort of writing exercise every day? I'm a big for years I did like parallel writing and different exercises to grow parts of my songwriting craft that I didn't feel like were good enough. And I'm still doing things like that. And then definitely just constantly having my radar up for ideas. And I mean, a list a mile long on my memos on my phone, you know, as you do.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's just putting in the effort and realizing, like, if you want to write songs, you don't just get to write it every now and then and make a living at it. Like, it's going to the mill and getting to work.
Cool. Great. And as far as, and that kind of covers business too, but is there like a piece of business advice that you'd want to share with aspiring writers?
I think
on the industry side of things.
Yep. I've always been very like independent minded and independent how I do things. But I think the biggest thing for me that I'm learning is the value of a team. Mm-hmm. And having people, and I mean, it doesn't have to be in any official capacity. I mean, it might be your publisher, it might just be a co-writer, or it might be multiple people. Like for me, in producing records, I used to do all of it, and now I'm pulling in a team to do what they're best at, and pulling in younger guys that I believe in, and having them do parts of what I'm doing, and just seeing. I'm just seeing a lot of fruit from that, both from a business standpoint, as well as like it feels good, again, to help a younger guy out and give him an opportunity to do something. So I think just the value of a team and being willing to understand that being creative is collaborative. If not anything else, if you're collaborative that day and create something together, like, you can feel pretty good about that.
Cool. Excellent advice. So dittos to that. Hey, Tyrus, thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us, for hanging with us, and good luck on the road this weekend. Good luck in the studio today. And
thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Keep on fighting the good fight, right?
Enjoyed it, bud. Thank you.
Right. Thanks much. God bless.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. And we're back.
Whoa, that was a fast interview. No.
Yeah. On our end, just doing the intro and outro, that just sped by.
Killer, man. What'd you learn from that?
So just a lot of great information. I think I would love to hear what you guys thought about it. So when this episode drops, give us your thoughts in the comments. What you had to say about Tyrus, some of those cuts and bruises stories, how much, relationships have impacted his career, that kind of stuff. I'd love to hear that. And especially your thoughts on building a great room, because that's something we talked about for a bit, is the importance of building a great room. And so I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Also, if you want to see the interview, if you want to hear more interviews like the ones we had with Tyrus and with Ted and several more in there, we'd love to have you come join us in the Freddie community. You can find that through songwritingpro.com or at freddie.com, FRETTIE.com. Membership is super cheap and super valuable. The hang videos are just one little piece of what we do over there, and I think it's worth a look-see. So that's at freddie.com.
Freddie.com. All right. Well, there you go, guys. That brings us to the end of another Killer Climb episode. Remember, subscribe to the podcast wherever you consume podcasts so that you get every single episode. You can consume them at your will. Take 30 seconds and leave an honest rating and review. Let some other people know about it. We're trying to get our ratings and reviews up over 200 before the end of the year. So, and we've been climbing steadily now. So if you're thinking about doing it, please take the time. Make sure that you tell somebody about it. That's what's most important. That if you like it and people hear from you that you like it, then they're going to be more likely to listen to it and get value from it too. And join the Climb community if you haven't done so already, right? You got anything else to add?
That's it. Oh, actually, I do have a gift for you. So for tuning in, I have a free ebook. It's called Think Like a Pro Songwriter. You can get it at giftfrombrent.com. So you can get instant access there. Just tell me where to send it. I'll send it out to you. Again, it's a free ebook, Think Like a Pro Songwriter, distills some of the lessons I've learned the hard way, so you don't have to. And it's at giftfrombrent.com. Other than that, keep on climbing.
There you go. Yes, we keep on climbing, and we'll see you at the top.
I know, I twisted it on you. You like how I did that? Bam! Keep it fresh.
The flea flicker.